The corporate regulator ASIC says there have been more breaches of insider trading in the past 3 years than in the previous decade. ASIC says it gets 200 alerts every day warning that some market players are trading with privileged information. On ABC Radio's AM program this morning, our business editor Peter Ryan revealed how ASIC now has the option of using telephone taps to trap corporate crooks. Peter joins me now, as does the Deputy Chairman of ASIC, Belinda Gibson. Belinda Gibson, welcome. Same to you, Peter.
Okay.
Now, Belinda Gibson, why do you think there's been such an increase in the number of breaches with insider trading over the last 3 years as compared to the previous decade?
Joe, I don't know if there's been more breaches, but there's certainly been more prosecutions. In 2008, we sat down and said, market integrity is really important. It's a big focus for us to do better at enforcing those breaches, identifying them and enforcing them. So I think that's the explanation. We've really worked hard at saying, let's bring this to book.
So as a greater effort on your part, can you give us any idea as to what sort of form that greater effort has taken over the last 3 years?
Yeah, and our first task was to look at our enforcement teams, who are our lawyers and investigators that go about finding it.
Can you tell us, and maybe this is privileged information, but how big is that team with ASIC now?
Well, at the moment we have about 70 people.
Right, okay.
But since then we've also acquired the supervision capability and responsibility from the ASX. So we have, I would say, about 30 people who are monitoring the market and looking at the suspicious trading alerts that we get when the computer bips at us and says, that looks a bit odd. Could it be insider trading? Could it be a manipulation?
With 200 alerts a day, they must be kept pretty busy.
They are. They work full time. They come to work at 7. We have to open up the doors early for them to get in because they're there before the market opens.
Okay.
And they work through the trading day. They have pre-meetings to say, oh, this looks like there might be a takeover play happening. We have to have a look. So they look at what they're going to look for and then they monitor. When they get an alert, there is an initial processing to say, oh, that doesn't look funny, or it does, and then they'll kick that out to a more sophisticated analysis, looking at a longer run of training. There's a limit to what the computer can do. We have a triage session which says, oh, yeah, that looks like there's something there and worthy of further investigation. And then it'll roll into our inquiry process.
Peter, had there been, and was it obvious to everyone that there had been this extra effort on the part of ASIC over the past couple of years to improve monitoring here?
Well, ASIC has been working very hard to notch up, obviously, as many victories as they can on insider trading, and there have been a number of very big cases, and ASIC has been on the front foot in putting out the message that insider trading won't be tolerated, and it just does carry that jail term. But I was going to ask you, Belinda, when we talk about insider trading and by that companies or individuals using information that is not available to the rest of the market, what type of people are we talking about?
There are broadly 2 categories. One, I regret to say, are directors. Directors of listed companies that think, here's corporate information, I have it because I'm a director and I can make a bit of money for myself by trading ahead of any announcement. And then the other are intermediaries. They're employees of intermediaries. They're not usually, we haven't prosecuted any intermediaries as a corporate entity, but it's staff who is privy to that sort of information because they're working on a deal or they're seeing things go through. They've got it ahead of time and they're using it for themselves.
And so it comes down to opportunity and temptation.
Yes.
People in those gatekeeper roles, as you call them, getting hold of information, thinking, well, we might be able to make a bit of money on this.
Absolutely. So part of our task is to find those people, which we are doing more of, knock on the door and pursue an investigation and a criminal prosecution and so on. And part of it is being to educate corporates and the gatekeepers about keeping their information secret. That need to know is an important rule.
How difficult is it to track down, and say, an accountant who's seen something in relation to a deal and think, oh, I might make a bit of cash on that? It must be very difficult to actually nab someone.
Sure, it is. It's all an IT game in a way. Yep. Trading in the markets now is an IT proposition. Yep. That means there's data there and you need to mine that data. You look for patterns, you look for particular players in the market who seem to be only winning. You look at, in market manipulation, you look at trading that goes up on the close, marking the close they call it. You set programs to bip at us when you find that. And then it's hard yakka going to a corporate or something and saying, well, who's trading? Where there's a takeover on, we'll often say, well, give us the insider list, give us everyone who knew about X.
Okay.
And then you do some matching, you look within, say, a firm might have information about X, and you say, well, who else in the firm might have been able to see through the barriers? It's just
hard work.
Chasing.
Yeah, and Pete, I would have assumed that phone tapping had been used by organisations like ASIC for a long time.
Well, ASIC has the power under laws that came in 2010, Belinda, to go to the federal police and work with the federal police and go to a magistrate to get permission to use telephone taps. And we know you're not going to be speaking about any specific individual cases, but phone tapping is an option these days. You do have the option of using that, but what advantage would phone taps give you in actually being able to get that hard evidence on insider trading, which after all is notoriously hard to gather that evidence?
It is. To prove in insider trading, there are essentially two things you have to prove: that the person who traded or the person who tipped was in possession of that information, and that the information is material. So how do you prove they're in possession of it? You've got to show they saw it. You've got to show someone told them. Now, someone can tell you they saw it, or a phone tap can do that. Now, it's not that we sort of drive around the streets with a car listening up for every conversation there is, but where there's strong, what we would say, circumstantial evidence that there has been some sort of a breach or a possible breach, there's unusual patterns. If you can get a phone tap with the federal police, or the federal police actually do it, then
Obviously
you can hear the conversation.
Yeah.
You can say, mate, this is really good. They're about to bid for X. Be good if you bought now. And mate goes and buys. And
have you been trialling this technology?
well, the federal police obviously have had powers for some time. In 2010, the difference was that the government increased the penalties to 10 years, and that's the trigger for an offence for which phone tapping can be done.
But
We've certainly had dialogue with the police about a number of possible cases, and I don't want to go into whether we are or aren't. Let all those who think they're insider trading
of course not,
worry about it.
But in the United States, as we saw it last year, there was the case of Galleon trading and Rajaratnam. That there was very successful prosecutions by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and we heard the phone taps in court. That gave them the evidence. And do you foresee the day when ASIC would be using phone taps as evidence and we will be able to listen to those in court?
I expect so. Brokers also record conversations sometimes, and we can use that evidence that you get on notice in court. I think if you look, you'll find that there have been some cases of insider trading where phone taps have been cited.
And have you been satisfied or frustrated with the penalties handed to the people you've been able to catch with insider trading?
Ooh, I can't comment on the judges.
Right, okay.
There's a range. It's a matter of, that's their hard task to balance what's fair. We are getting higher penalties, and I think that's appropriate. It reflects the government saying this is a 10-year penalty. And
it's not just a breach of ethics. You're sending the message that it is theft.
Absolutely. It's a theft of information. It's unfair. If you're trading in the market, you want to know that you've got as much chance as anyone else of using that information. It's go to jail stuff, really.
Okay, Belinda Gibson, thanks so much for coming in. Great talking to you, and good luck with your work. And cheers, Peter.
Okay, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.